My dad and sister tried to steal my house using fake documents and a locksmith while I was at work. I came home to movers in my driveway, locks mid-change, and Sarah live streaming the whole thing. I pulled out the deed, called the police, and watched Sarah's face drop when the cops cuffed her. Turns out fraud's not aesthetic, and I had every receipt. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Growing up, my dad always bent over backwards for Sarah private school, brand deals, even covering her rent after she blew her influencer paycheck on Botox and blowouts. Meanwhile, I worked graveyard shifts at the clinic just to pay off community college. I scrubbed kennels, skipped parties, and patched ripped scrubs instead of buying new ones. Every milestone I reached, Sarah made a spectacle of herself to steal the spotlight. Dad called it supporting her hustle. When I closed on my first home, I didn't throw a party. I cried in the empty living room, clutching the keys. It was the one thing no one gave me, earned every square foot. Sarah showed up uninvited that weekend, took selfies on my porch, and posted them with blessed life. Dad laughed and said, "She's just proud of you." No, she was rehearsing. That was the first time I felt the house wasn't safe. A month later, Dad asked if Sarah could crash for a bit since her lease ended. I said no firmly. He guilted me with "she's your sister," and warned I was being cruel. When Sarah texted me crying emojis and a selfie of her in a hotel room, I knew they were tag teaming. That night, I installed cameras around the house. I stopped leaving spare keys under the mat. I didn't feel like a brother. I felt preyed on. Sarah started showing up unannounced, claiming she just missed me, but always casing the place, peeking into drawers, snapping photos. Once, I caught her measuring my living room. She giggled and said, manifesting my future layout. I changed my Wi-Fi password, blocked her on Instagram, and bolted my garage. Dad said I was overreacting, that she was just playing. No, she was plotting, and I was done pretending it was harmless. I started documenting everything just in case. One afternoon, I found a letter in my mailbox and offered to transfer my deed. It looked official, with a return address to some family estate services. I called the number. No such business. The logo, lifted from a stock site. Sarah had forged it, trying to trick me into signing away my home. I confronted Dad. He didn't deny it. It was just a shortcut, he muttered. That shortcut had felony written all over it. Sarah went quiet for a week, too quiet. Then a stranger rang my doorbell asking if the property was still available. He showed me a Zillow listing with my house on it. Photos from Sarah's Instagram, listed under a fake realtor email. I reported it, flagged every post, and emailed screenshots to my lawyer. Dad claimed he had no idea. I didn't believe him. Sarah wasn't acting alone. And I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was done warning shots. I left work early after a gut feeling told me to check the cameras. There it was, Sarah unloading furniture from a rental van into my garage. I floored at home. She screamed when she saw me, claiming she had a lease. I walked straight past her and dialed 911. Dad showed up mid-call, trying to de-escalate. I held up my phone and said, "This is theft." They didn't laugh this time. The cops showed up fast. The officers reviewed my deed, then looked at Sarah's flimsy printouts. One of them asked, "Where did you get this lease?" Sarah blinks. Dad interjected, "It's a family arrangement." The cop raised an eyebrow. "Then why is she changing the locks?" Sarah froze. I said nothing, just showed them my notarized mortgage paperwork. One officer radioed for backup. Sarah's smugness cracked. Dad pulled me aside, whispering, "We didn't mean harm." Too late, the harm was fully documented. Sarah started crying for the cameras, begging the officers not to arrest her in front of her followers. She even asked one if he'd just delete the footage. That backfired fast. They cuffed her, read her rights, and placed her in the cruiser. Dad tried bargaining, "I'll pay whatever fine she gets." They ignored him. I leaned against the porch rail, shaking. It wasn't just justice, it was a seismic shift. For once, I was heard at the precinct. I filed a restraining order and handed over all evidence: Zillow screenshots, fake deed mailer, camera footage. The officer said, "You're not the first." Turns out Sarah had tried similar stunts before, but no one pressed charges. I did. Dad sat across from me in silence. I looked at him and said, "You let her do this." He didn't respond, just stared at the linoleum. For once, he had no script, just shame. Back at home, the locksmith hired by Sarah returned to finish raking everything. I told him he's unknowingly aided a crime. He apologized and rakied the whole house for free. As he worked, I boxed up Sarah's belongings, left from past visits, and bagged every last one. I didn't even want her perfume bottle contaminating my space. This wasn't about revenge anymore, it was restoration. My home was mine again, and this time, it was fortified. The next morning, news of Sarah's arrest hit local blogs, mostly screenshots from her own live street. Comments poured in. She tried to scam her brother. Is this real? Her brand partnerships dropped like flies. Fun vegan skincare line posted, "We've severed all ties with Ms. Whitmore due to misconduct." Dad tried calling. I let it ring out. For once, the narrative wasn't theirs, it was mine. And mine came with timestamps, contracts, and a courtroom ahead. A former assistant of Sarah's messaged me anonymously. She'd seen the Zillow scam before on Sarah's last roommate. She provided screenshots, emails, even audio of Sarah bragging about how Caleb's too soft to fight. I forwarded everything to the detective. Suddenly, Sarah's case ballooned. This wasn't just fraud, it was premeditated. She had a playbook, and I wasn't her first mark, but I'd be her last. I wasn't scared, I was ready. My silence had expired. The detective confirmed Sarah had used the same fake realtor name on 3 prior listings. One case involved an elderly woman she befriended at a yoga class. That woman lost her condo deposit. When confronted, Sarah claimed it was a branding mistake. But now, with the assistant's files and police pressure, the woman agreed to testify. My case became the linchpin. Sarah wasn't a sister. She was a serial scammer. And the spotlight finally burned her. An audit of Dad's accounts revealed wire transfers to Sarah, tens of thousands labeled loan, business support, even debt relief. But there were no tax filings, no payback. My lawyer flagged them. Turns out, some were siphoned from our late grandmother's estate, which Dad managed. Suddenly, I wasn't just a son, I was a beneficiary with grounds for legal action. The betrayal was bigger than theft, it was legacy theft. They didn't just want my house, they wanted my bloodline. Harold, my dad, tried shifting blame, claiming Sarah manipulated him too. But emails surfaced. He'd forwarded her links to eviction loopholes, legal templates, and real estate blog articles titled How to Reclaim Property from Relatives. He knew he helped, and now he was in the crosshairs. My lawyer filed motions. The estate was frozen. Sarah might face prison, but He'd face the family court and grandma's will. They thought I was a doormat. Turns out, I'm the doorframe. In court, Sarah wore beige and cried about family misunderstanding, but the assistant's voice memo "he's too weak to say no" played clearly. The judge's face didn't move. Then came the photo. Zillow, fake lease, the live street, dead sat stone-faced. When the will theft was introduced, gasps echoed. Sarah whimpered. Harold asked for a break. The judge denied it. This wasn't a soap opera, it was fraud. And it came with consequences. I wasn't just a plaintiff, I was the line they crossed. Sarah's influencer friends abandoned her. One even apologized to me publicly. I didn't know she's gone that far. Her brand pages vanished. Dad's coworkers started whispering. And her complaint surfaced. He'd used company time to draft fake property forms. He was suspended. Meanwhile, my vet clinic was booming. Thanks to the local buzz, I added security cameras, legal insurance, and a neon sign that read, "No freeloaders beyond this point." My home was safe, my name clean. Their masks had melted. Sarah's ex filed for full custody, citing instability and fraud. The court granted it. Her kids, the very excuse she used to justify stealing my home, were now protected from her. Dad tried contacting me with a shaky apology letter, saying he acted out of love. I didn't reply. My silence wasn't cruelty, it was a boundary. For once, I wasn't trying to explain myself. I was done negotiating my worth. The court had spoken, so had I. One of Sarah's former brand partners sued her for breach of contract. She'd promised them a product launch film from her home, which turned out to be mine. The footage was subpoenaed. Her curated online life unraveled, frame by frame. Meanwhile, my lawyer added emotional distress to our claim. This wasn't just theft, it was identity sabotage. Sarah always wanted my calm, my space, my stability. Now, she couldn't even fake it for the algorithm. The facade cracked. Sarah's lawyer quit mid-case citing client dishonesty. She tried representing herself. Armed with Pinterest quotes and TikTok logic in court, she claimed I manifested betrayal by hoarding property. The judge didn't flinch, neither did I. Behind me, two former friends of hers, now witnesses, sat silently. Every lie she spun dissolved under cross. The house wasn't the battleground anymore. It was her entire persona, collapsing. My truth stood solid. Her empire? Just rented lights and borrowed wallpaper. The final blow came from Grandma's old accountant, who submitted sealed estate documents showing Sarah's name was never on any beneficiary list, despite Dad's claims. Harold had lied. The judge ordered restitution. Sarah's face broke, not from guilt but exposure. She wasn't a misunderstood sister. She was a liar with a live street. I didn't celebrate, I just exhaled. Truth wasn't glamorous, it was granular. But I had it, and now, it was part of the public record. Sarah filed a defamation suit against me. Her claim that my online hate campaign damaged her brand. My reply, discovery, we countersued. Emails emerged of her plotting public meltdowns for sympathy clicks. She called my house a stepping stone. The judge tossed her claim and greenlit ours. Now, she owed damages. Her last Instagram post was a selfie caption, "Lesson learned." Comments were off. I screenshots it anyway. The internet forgets fast, courts don't, receipts don't lie. A local podcast invited me to share my story. I declined, but they aired a segment anyway, from vet tech to viral justice. Clients came in, quoting my court lines. A teenage girl brought her dog and whispered, "You helped my mom stand up to her ex." That hit harder than any verdict. My story wasn't just scandal, it was survival made visible. Sarah wanted an audience. I got one, but for honesty. For holding the line. Harold tried one last maneuver, asking the judge for leniency due to age. He claimed Sarah manipulated him emotionally. But then the clerk played a voicemail, Harold telling Sarah, "He's soft, this'll be easy." The room went still, no more pity. Just patterns. The judge ruled against him. The estate was redistributed. My name reclaimed, what Grandma intended. No loopholes, no leniency, just lineage restored. Sometimes justice whispers. That day, it thundered and Harold had to sit in it at sentencing. Sarah begged for house arrest, claiming she needed to protect her brand. The prosecutor laughed, the judge didn't. She got 18 months plus restitution. Dad got community service and a court-ordered financial ethics course outside. Reporters asked if I had anything to say. I held up my keys. She had a platform. I had proof. It wasn't poetic, it was precise. Sarah lost her followers. I gained boundaries. We weren't family, just surnames with receipts. Word spread at the clinic. Clients brought gifts, cookies, thank you notes. Even a framed quote, "Silence is not kindness." I hung it near the exam table. Sarah had tried to erase my foundation, but she ended up spotlighting it. I was never invisible, just muted by manipulation. Now, my name was solid, not viral vital. The house stood. The clinic thrived. And for the first time, peace didn't feel borrowed. It felt installed like deadbolts on every lie. Sarah's fanbase tried reviving her brand. Justice for Sarah trended briefly, but screenshots, court documents, and witness testimonies flooded the replies. Her defense crumbled in pixels. She deactivated her accounts. Meanwhile, I posted one picture, me, on my porch, holding my dog and house keys. Caption, "Still here." It got thousands of likes, not for drama, for durability. I didn't need clout, I had closure. They wanted the house. I reclaimed the narrative. Sometimes, surviving is the loudest thing you can do. Final twist, the locksmith started following me on Instagram. His bio now says verified eviction specialist. We laugh about it sometimes. He even refers new clients to my clinic. One DDM read, "You're the guy who beat the influencer scam, right?" I never imagined going viral through betrayal. But here we are. Not everyone gets justice with handcuffs and headlines. But I did, because I stopped apologizing for protecting myself. And because this time I locked every door. Sometimes I catch myself checking the locks twice, not from fear, but from habit. That house used to feel like a battlefield. Now it's a sanctuary. I rearranged the living room, painted over the aesthetic wall Sarah filmed in front of, and planted herbs in her selfie spot. I didn't just reclaim space, I redefined it. Safety doesn't always come with sirens. Sometimes, it's just silence and knowing no one's scheming behind your back. I no longer explain my boundaries. If someone raises an eyebrow at no surprise visits, I smile and change the subject. My piece isn't up for debate. Harold still sends birthday cards. I shred them and opened. Sarah's friends once DM'd me apologies, I left them on read. Forgiveness isn't owed. Accountability is. And if I learn one thing from this mess, it's this: love without respect is just manipulation in costume. Sarah's now serving time. Her influencer career, cautionary tale, and marketing blogs. Dad's estate was split fairly finally. I donated my share to an animal shelter and kept my name off the plaque. No legacy needed, just clarity. The locksmith and I still joke worst client ever. Tied between her and the raccoon lady, my life isn't revenge-fueled, it's proof-driven. And every night, I lock up with a smile. Justice didn't knock, it kicked down the door. Sarah wrote from jail once, said she found God, and wanted to promote my clinic from the inside. I didn't reply. Instead, I framed the deed and hung it above my front door. A client asked if it was art. I said, it's armor. Because when people try to steal what you built, sometimes the best response isn't rage, it's reinforcement. Not all homes come with blueprints. Some are built brick by boundary. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.